Reed nodded. He was used to tough missions. As one of Earth's most decorated officers, he had led dangerous expeditions to the outer planets before first contact. "We've received a ship from the Confederation," Hayes said. "The Tenacity. It's old, but it's ours. And you're going to command it." Reed's face showed nothing, but his mind raced. Everyone knew about the gift, and everyone knew it was more insult than honor. "May I ask why me, Admiral?" Hayes stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth's blue ocean spun slowly. "Because you've never given up on anything in your life, Reed, and this ship needs someone who won't give up on it." Reed nodded again. "When do I start?" "Immediately. Your crew has been selected. The best minds we have. Though some might call them unusual." "Unusual how?" Hayes smiled. "Let's just say they think differently than most. You'll need that." 3 days later, Reed floated through the corridors of the Tenacity for the first time. The artificial gravity was one of many systems not working properly. The air smelled old and stale, and many of the lights flickered or didn't work at all. The ship was huge inside, with corridors that could fit 10 people walking side by side. But everywhere he looked, Reed saw problems. Panels hung loose from walls. Wires stuck out like the ship's insides were spilling out. In some places, the metal floors had worn so thin he could feel them bend under his feet. "Captain on deck," called a voice as Reed entered what should have been the bridge. 5 officers stood at attention, his senior staff. They looked young, too young for such positions, but Reed had read their files. Each was brilliant in their own way, even if none would have fit in with a traditional crew. "At ease," Reed said. "This is an informal tour. I wanted to see what we're working with." "Not much, sir," said a woman with short black hair and lieutenant's bars. "Life support is working at 40%. Weapons systems are completely offline. And the engines," she made a face like she'd tasted something bad. "The engines are fascinating," interrupted a burly man with a wild red beard. He wore an engineer's uniform with the name Donovan stitched across it. "They're unlike anything I've seen before. Ancient, yes, but the principles." His eyes shone with excitement. "Lieutenant Donovan is our chief engineer," Reed said. "And you are?" He turned to the woman. "Lieutenant Maria Diaz, tactical officer, sir," she said, "though there's not much tactical about this ship right now." Reed looked around at the rest of his crew. A young man with glasses who introduced himself as the science officer, a quiet woman who would handle communications, a serious-looking man who was in charge of security. None of them looked happy to be there. None except Donovan, who kept glancing toward the door as if eager to get back to the engines. "I know this isn't what any of you expected," Reed said, "but this is our ship now, and we're going to make it work." Diaz looked skeptical. "With all due respect, sir, it would take years to make this ship battle-ready, and that's with resources we don't have." Reed was about to answer when a crash echoed through the ship. The lights flickered, then went out completely. Emergency lights came on, bathing everything in red. "What was that?" Reed demanded. "Power coupling in Section 12, Donovan said immediately. "I was working on it earlier. Must have finally given out." "Can you fix it?" Donovan grinned. "I can fix anything, Captain." Reed nodded. "Then let's." "Captain," Donovan interrupted, his face suddenly serious. "Before we go, there's something you should see. In the engine room." Reed followed Donovan through dark corridors, the rest of the officers trailing behind. The engine room was enormous, with machinery rising 3 stories high. Most of it looked old and worn, but Donovan led them to a sealed door at the back. "I found this yesterday," he said, typing a code into a panel. It wasn't on any of the ship's plans. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a small room with a single pedestal in the center. On the pedestal sat a glowing blue cube, pulsing gently. "What is it?" Reed asked, stepping closer. Donovan's face broke into a huge smile. "That, Captain, is a quantum power core. The Confederation thinks it's dead. That's why they left it. But it's not dead. It's just sleeping. And that means, it means, Donovan said, his eyes reflecting the blue light, that with this, we could make this old ship fly like nothing Earth has ever seen. For the first time since taking command, Reed smiled. Perhaps this floating coffin had life in it yet. Reed hesitated for only a moment. Do it. The ship's lights dimmed, then brightened. A deep humming sound vibrated through the hull. On the bridge, screens changed to show unfamiliar symbols and controls. What's happening? Diaz asked, staring at her console in confusion. The ship is remembering, Professor Reed said softly, watching the ancient symbols appear. It's becoming what it once was. Outside, the tenacity began to change. Panels on the hull that had seemed like simple repairs split open, revealing glowing blue energy beneath. The ship's shape shifted, sections moving and realigning. What had once looked like an old, patched-together vessel now gleamed with power and purpose. On the sect flagship, Grand Marshal Oryx watched in horror. Impossible, he whispered. They've activated the Celestial Judgment Protocol. The tenacity completed its transformation, now surrounded by a blue energy field. The ship no longer resembled a battle cruiser, but something far more elegant and powerful. Transformation complete, Athena announced. The tenacity has returned to its original form. And what form is that? Reed asked, still trying to understand what had happened to his ship. In the early days of the Confederation, Athena explained, the founders feared that one faction might grow too powerful. They created the witness vessels not just to record history, but to enforce balance when necessary. This ship was designed to prevent tyranny. The sect ships are firing. Diaz called out. Energy beams from all 6 enemy vessels struck the tenacity simultaneously. But instead of damaging the shields, the energy seemed to flow into the blue field surrounding the ship, making it glow brighter. Are we absorbing their attacks? Foster asked in amazement. Yes, Athena confirmed. The ship was designed to use aggression against the aggressors. The more they attack, the stronger we become. Can we return fire? Reed asked. We can do something better, Athena replied. We can broadcast the truth. Understanding dawned on Reed's face. The evidence in the database. Exactly, Athena said. This ship wasn't just a recorder of history. It was designed to share that history when corruption threatened the Confederation. The sect knows this. It's why they fear it. Reed turned to his communications officer. Prepare a broadcast on all Confederation frequencies. Wait, Professor Reed interrupted. If we do this, we'll be interfering in Confederation politics in a major way. It could have serious consequences for Earth. Captain Reed considered this for a moment, then shook his head. The sect has already attacked us. They've been manipulating events, including those affecting Earth, for centuries. We have a right to expose the truth. He turned back to Athena. Begin the broadcast. Throughout Confederation space, communication systems suddenly activated. On thousands of ships and planets, beings of all species watched as evidence of the Dominator sect's centuries of manipulation was revealed. Secret recordings of meetings, unauthorized military actions, assassinations of political opponents, all laid bare for the galaxy to see. On the sect flagship, Oryx watched in fury as his life's work unraveled before his eyes. Destroy that ship, he ordered. Use everything we have. The sect ships fired their most powerful weapons, but each attack only made the tenacity stronger. The blue field expanded, enclosing all 6 enemy vessels in its glow. Their engines are disabled, Diaz reported with satisfaction. They're trapped. Suddenly, new ships appeared on the sensors, dozens of them, approaching rapidly. Confederation vessels, Diaz identified them. A lot of them. The communications officer looked up. We're being hailed by the Confederation flagship, a dignified alien with features similar to Oryx, but with blue skin instead of silver appeared on screen. This is President Laurel of the Galactic Confederation. Captain Reed, your broadcast has been received throughout our territory. The evidence you've provided is disturbing. It's all from your own records, Mr. President, Reed replied. Stored in this ship, which was once one of your witness vessels. Laurel nodded solemnly. The witness vessels are part of our oldest traditions. We had forgotten their true purpose. He glanced to the side, apparently receiving information. Grand Marshal Oryx has been detained by his own officers. It seems not all in the sect were aware of his actions. Reed forced a smile. We welcome the Confederation's interest in our work. As they toured the ship, Reed showed them the obvious improvements: repaired corridors, new control systems, a bridge that actually looked like a bridge. Krell seemed unimpressed, but Hayes nodded with approval. And the power core? Hayes asked quietly when Krell was examining a panel. We've made progress, Reed said. Donovan and Foster have a demonstration prepared. In the engine room, Foster stood by a new console, her face calm, but her eyes excited. Donovan was beneath the floor, only his legs visible as he made final adjustments to some machinery. Admiral, Inspector, Foster greeted them. We're ready to show you our first successful integration of the quantum core with Earth technology. Krell blinked his 3 eyes. Impossible. Your species lacks the scientific understanding for such work. Foster smiled politely. Perhaps you'd like to observe before making judgments. Donovan emerged from the floor, his uniform stained with grease. All set, Doctor. Foster touched controls on the console. The blue cube began to pulse faster, its light growing brighter. A low hum filled the room, and displays around them came to life, showing power readings. We've modified the secondary distribution system to act as a converter, Foster explained. It takes the quantum energy and transforms it into something our systems can use. How much power? Hayes asked. Currently, 300% more than the ship's original specifications, Foster said. Krell made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Impossible. Watch, Donovan said, and pressed a button. The lights throughout the ship brightened. Systems that had been dead for decades came online. On the bridge, Lieutenant Diaz watched as her console lit up with weapons diagnostics for the first time. In the engine room, Krell stepped back. How did you do this? The power core was nearly depleted. It wasn't depleted, Foster explained. It was in a dormant state. The Confederation's engineers missed it because they never thought to look at quantum states beyond their standard parameters. And your primitive technology somehow found this? Krell asked, his voice no longer flat but high with surprise. Sometimes a fresh perspective helps, Reed said. We didn't know what wasn't possible, so we tried everything. After the demonstration, Krell returned to his shuttle quickly. As they watched him leave, Hayes turned to Reed. He'll report this to his superiors, she said. Good, Reed replied. Let them know we're making progress. Hayes shook her head. You don't understand. They gave us this ship because they thought it was useless. Now you're proving them wrong. That makes you dangerous. Reed. With all due respect, Admiral, we're just fixing the ship. No, Hayes said, looking at the distant shape of Krell's departing shuttle. You're changing the game, and they don't like when the rules change. After Hayes left, Reed called his senior staff to the newly functional bridge. They sat at their stations, which now glowed with light and information. The Admiral thinks we're making enemies, Reed told them. The Confederation doesn't like that we're succeeding where they expected us to fail. So what do we do? Asked Walker. Stop our work. Reed smiled. Quite the opposite. Donovan, I want full power integration within a month. Foster, find ways to improve efficiency even further. Diaz, get those new weapons ready for testing. And what will you tell Admiral Hayes? Diaz asked. That we're just following orders, making the best of what we were given. Reed stood and looked at each of them. The Confederation thinks they gave us a floating coffin. Let's show them what humans can do with it. As the meeting ended, Foster approached Reed. "Captain, there's something else you should know. While studying the ship's database, I found references to capabilities that weren't in the technical manuals they gave us." "What kind of capabilities?" "I'm not sure yet," Foster said. "But from what I can tell, this ship wasn't always a battle cruiser. It was something else first, something they don't want us to know about." Reed looked out at the stars through the view screen. "Find out what it was, Doctor. Knowledge is power, and right now we need all the power we can get." In the distance, Jupiter's great red spot swirled like an angry eye watching them. The game had changed, indeed. But it was only just beginning. "Captain Reed to the bridge. Emergency." Reed jolted awake in his quarters. The Tenacity had been fully operational for nearly a year now. After months of upgrades and testing, Earth Command had finally sent them on a real mission, patrolling the border of human space. Reed rushed through the corridors, which now had working gravity and bright lights. The ship no longer looked like a floating wreck. Panels were secure, systems hummed with power, and the crew moved with confidence. On the bridge, Lieutenant Diaz stood at her tactical station, her face grim. "Captain, we've received a distress call from the mining colony on Ceres 9. They're under attack." Reed took his chair. "Pirates?" "Yes, sir. A fleet of them. The colony's defenses are failing." "How far are we?" 20 minutes at maximum speed." Reed looked at the communications officer. "Any other Earth ships responding?" "No, sir," she said. "We're the only military vessel in range. The next closest is 3 hours away." Reed didn't hesitate. "Set course for Ceres 9, maximum speed. All hands to battle stations." As the crew prepared for their first combat mission, Reed called engineering. "Donovan, I need everything you've got from the engines." "You'll have it, Captain," Donovan replied. "The core is purring like a kitten today. I've routed extra power to the shields and Diaz's special weapons." "Good," Reed said. "We're going to need them." As the Tenacity approached Ceres 9, they could see flashes of light where the pirate ships were bombarding the colony's shields. 5 sleek, modern vessels surrounded the small mining outpost, their weapons cutting through the colony's defenses. "Open a channel," Reed ordered. "Channel open," the communications officer replied. "This is Captain Thomas Reed of the Earth vessel Tenacity. Cease your attack on this colony immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause, then laughter came through the speakers. "An Earth ship. Alone." The voice had a rough, sneering quality. "Look at that thing. It's ancient. I've seen garbage scows with better weapons." Reed nodded to Diaz. "Show them what we've got, Lieutenant." Diaz smiled. "With pleasure, sir." The Tenacity surged forward, moving with a speed and grace that defied its massive size. Dr. Foster's modifications to the power core had allowed Donovan to completely redesign the propulsion system. The old ship now moved like a dancer among the stars. "They're targeting us," Diaz reported as the pirate ships turned their attention away from the colony. "Evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered, "but keep us between them and the colony." The Tenacity twisted and turned as energy beams from the pirate ships lanced toward it. Most missed completely, surprised by the old ship's unexpected agility. Those that hit were absorbed by shields far stronger than any Earth vessel had ever deployed before. "Shields holding at 90%, Diaz reported. "They're hitting us with everything they've got." "Return fire," Reed commanded. "Target their lid ship. Let's show them what those mining lasers can do." Diaz activated her modified weapons system. Unlike traditional energy weapons that created explosive destruction, her design was precise and focused. A narrow beam of intense energy, powered by the quantum core, shot out from the Tenacity. It hit the lead pirate ship and sliced through its shields like they weren't even there. With surgical precision, the beam cut through the ship's weapon mounts, leaving it defenseless but intact. "One down," Diaz said with satisfaction. The pirate fleet seemed stunned by the demonstration. They had expected an easy fight against an outdated Earth ship. Instead, their most powerful weapons couldn't penetrate the Tenacity's shields, and their lead ship had been disabled with a single shot. "They're changing formation," Dias reported. "3 ships moving to flank us." Reed smiled. "Let them try." For the next 10 minutes, the Tenacity engaged in a dance of power and precision. The pirate ships were faster and more maneuverable, but they couldn't match the raw power of the ancient vessel's enhanced systems. One by one, Dias disabled their weapons, careful not to destroy the ships or kill their crews. "Last ship is making a run for it," Dias reported. "Let them go," Reed said, "but track them. I want to know where they're headed." As the final pirate ship flew into deep space, cheers erupted on the bridge. They had won their first battle without losing a single life, enemy or friendly. "Damage report," Reed called out. "Minor damage to outer hull plating in sections 5 and 12. An officer reported. "Shields already regenerating. We'll be back to full strength in 20 minutes." Reed nodded, impressed by how well the old ship had performed. "Open a channel to the colony." A tired but relieved face appeared on the screen. "This is Governor Pottle of Series 9. I don't know how to thank you, Captain. Those pirates have hit 3 colonies in the past month. They would have broken through our shields in minutes if you hadn't arrived." "We're glad we could help, Governor," Reed replied. "We'll stay in orbit until Earth Command can send reinforcements." After the communication ended, Reed stood and looked around at his proud crew. "Well done, everyone. Our first test in battle, and you performed brilliantly." "The pirates didn't know what hit them," Dias said, grinning. "Their faces when that first shot cut through their shields. I wish I could have seen it up close." "I'm more impressed by the shields," Foster said, joining them on the bridge. "They absorbed energy levels that should have fried our systems. The core is actually stronger now than before the battle. It seems to feed on the energy directed at it." A young officer approached Reed. "Sir, you should know. We're being scanned." "By whom?" Reed asked. "The pirates are gone." "Not the pirates, sir. It's a Confederation patrol ship. They just entered the system, and they're scanning us extensively." Reed frowned. This was unexpected. Confederation ships rarely entered human space, and when they did, they announced themselves first. "Put them on screen," he ordered. A sleek, gleaming ship appeared on the view screen. It was clearly Confederation design, all smooth lines and glossy surfaces, not a patch or repair in sight. "They're hailing us," the communications officer said. "Answer it." A blue-skinned alien appeared on screen. "Earth vessel, this is Commander Trill of the Confederation patrol ship Vigilance. We detected weapons fire in this sector." "Commander," Reed replied politely. "We responded to a distress call from the human colony on Series 9. Pirates were attacking it. We drove them off." Trill's large eyes blinked slowly. "Our scans indicate you are piloting the vessel Tenacity. Is this correct?" "Yes," Reed confirmed. "Interesting," Trill said, though his tone suggested alarm rather than interest. "We will be filing a report with the Confederation Council regarding this incident." The screen went blank before Reed could respond. "Well, that was rude," Dias muttered. Reed stared at the empty screen. "They're surprised. The Tenacity wasn't supposed to be combat-capable, let alone able to defeat 5 modern pirate vessels." "Should we be concerned?" Foster asked. Reed turned to his crew. "No, we did nothing wrong. We protected our people using a ship that was given to us. If the Confederation has a problem with that, they can take it up with Earth Command." But later, alone in his quarters, Reed couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Tenacity had performed beyond all expectations in its first battle. But in doing so, it had drawn the attention of the Confederation in a way that felt dangerous. His computer beeped with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Hayes, marked urgent. The message was brief. "Reed, your battle report received. Impressive work. But you've stirred up a hornet's nest. The Confederation Council has called an emergency meeting. Something about the tenacity that they're not telling us. Watch your back. Full resources authorized for your mission now. Make that old ship shine. You're going to need it. Reed read the message twice, then deleted it as protocol required. Whatever was coming, the tenacity would be ready. The floating coffin had proven it still had plenty of life and fight left in it. The tenacity emerged from FTL travel in a region of space far from any charted systems. Stars shone against the black emptiness, unfamiliar constellations that no human had ever seen before. On the bridge, Captain Reed stood tensely as his crew monitored their systems. The emergency jump had pushed the old ship to its limits, but thanks to Donovan's upgrades, they had survived. Status report, Reed ordered. All systems functional. Diaz replied from her tactical station. The quantum core is operating at 120% capacity. 120%. Reed asked in surprise. How is that possible? The jump stimulated the core, came Athena's voice from the ship's speakers. It is now operating as it was originally designed to. Reed still wasn't used to having an AI integrated into his ship. For the past 6 hours as they traveled through FTL, Athena had been accessing the ancient database, learning about the tenacity's true purpose. Athena, what have you discovered? Reed asked. Everything, Captain, Athena replied. I know what this ship truly is, and I know why the Dominator sect fears it. Before she could explain further, Diaz called out, Sect warship has emerged from FTL, and they're not alone. 5 more ships just appeared. The view screen showed 6 sleek, powerful vessels surrounding the tenacity. At the center was a massive flagship, its hull gleaming with weapons. They found us quickly, Professor Reed noted. They must have tracking technology we don't know about. Not technology, Athena said. There is a beacon built into the ship's original design. It was meant to allow the Confederation to always locate witness vessels. Can you disable it? Reed asked. Already done, Athena replied. But it's too late for our current situation. The communications officer looked up from her station. Captain, we're being hailed by the sect flagship. Reed nodded. On screen. The view screen shifted to show an imposing alien with pale silver skin and sharp features. His uniform was black with gold symbols that matched some of the ancient writing Professor Reed had been studying. I am Grand Marshal Oryx of the Dominator sect, the alien announced. You possess a vessel that belongs to us. Surrender immediately. Reed stood straight, showing no fear. This ship was a gift from the Confederation to Earth. We've broken no laws by using it. Oryx smiled coldly. How little you understand, human. That vessel was never meant for creatures like you. You were chosen to receive it precisely because you were too primitive to understand its secrets. His eyes narrowed. Or so we thought. We know what the tenacity really is, Reed said. We know about the witness vessels and the data they contain. Then you know why you must surrender, Oryx replied. That ship contains evidence that could destabilize the entire Confederation. For the greater good, it must be destroyed. The greater good of the Dominator sect, you mean? Reed countered. Oryx's face hardened. I will offer you one chance, human. Surrender now, and your crew will be spared. Continue this foolish resistance, and you will be destroyed. Reed looked around at his crew. They had come so far with this old ship that no one had wanted. They had turned a floating coffin into something remarkable. He wasn't about to give up now. We decline your offer, Marshal Oryx, Reed said firmly. Oryx's expression didn't change. As expected, prepare to be destroyed. The screen went blank. He's targeting us, Diaz reported. All 6 ships are charging weapons. Shields at maximum, Reed ordered. Evasive maneuvers. Captain, Athena interrupted. I have a suggestion. I'm listening. The tenacity was never a battle cruiser. That was a disguise to hide its true form. With the quantum core at full power, I can access the ship's original configuration. What will that do? Foster asked. It will transform the tenacity into what it was meant to be, Athena replied. A vessel of judgment and balance. 2 years had passed since the Confederation had given Earth the tenacity. In that time, the ancient vessel had become humanity's flagship. Under Captain Reed's command, the ship had defended 3 colonies, mapped unexplored regions of space, and represented Earth at diplomatic functions. What had once been a floating coffin now shone with pride and power. Reed stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The tenacity was docked at Earth's orbital station for a ceremony. Today, Admiral Hayes would officially name it the flagship of Earth's growing fleet. Thinking deep thoughts, Captain? Dr. Foster asked, joining him at the window. Just remembering how this all started, Reed said. When we first saw this ship, I thought Hayes was punishing me with an impossible task. Foster smiled. And now every officer in the fleet wants to serve on the tenacity. Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Walker, who hurried toward them with an urgent look on his face. Captain, you need to see this, Walker said, holding out a data pad. It's from our intelligence division. Reed took the pad and read the report. His face grew serious. Are you sure about this? Yes, sir, Walker replied. It came from 3 separate sources. It's real. Reed turned to Foster. Cancel your plans for tonight's celebration. We need an emergency meeting of the senior staff. In the Tenacity's conference room, Reed's officers gathered around the table. Donovan's beard was now neatly trimmed, a concession to his new rank as chief engineer of Earth's fleet. Diaz wore the insignia of a tactical instructor, having developed new weapon systems based on her work. Walker had built an intelligence network that reached throughout human space. What's happening, Captain? Diaz asked. Reed activated the room's display. Intelligence has discovered something disturbing. The pirate attacks we've been fighting for the past 2 years weren't random. They were organized by a faction within the Confederation called the Dominator Sect. The display showed images of sleek ships and stern-looking aliens in ornate uniforms. The sect believes the Confederation has grown weak through peace, Reed continued. They want to guide the younger races, like us, through force rather than cooperation. So the pirates were their proxies? Donovan asked. Yes, Walker confirmed. And that's not all. We believe they've been manipulating events for centuries. The attack on Ceres 9 wasn't just about the colony. They wanted to see what the tenacity could do. But why? Foster asked. Why would they care about one old ship? Reed looked at her. Because of what you found in the ship's database last year, the hidden files you've been trying to decode. Foster sat up straighter. I've only managed to access fragments. The encryption is unlike anything I've seen. My father might be able to help with that, Reed said. He's the best linguist Earth has. I've asked Admiral Hayes to bring him here. I still don't understand, Diaz said. Why would they give us this ship if it contained information that could expose their conspiracy? Because they couldn't destroy it, came a new voice. They all turned to see an older man with silver hair standing in the doorway. Professor Alan Reed looked like an older version of his son, with the same determined eyes. Dad, Captain Reed said, standing to greet his father. Thank you for coming. When the Admiral of Earth's fleet personally asks for help, it's hard to say no. Professor Reed replied with a small smile. He turned to the others. Captain Reed shared Dr. Foster's findings with me 2 weeks ago. I've been working on the code since then. He connected his own device to the conference room system. Ancient symbols appeared on the display. The Confederation has laws about data preservation, Professor Reed explained. Records from certain periods cannot be destroyed, only archived. The Tenacity contains data cores from that era. 6 months passed like a blur for the crew of the Tenacity. Earth had moved the ancient ship to a deep space repair facility orbiting Jupiter. The massive rings of the gas giant provided a beautiful backdrop as shuttles and worker pods buzzed around the old battle cruiser like bees around a hive. Inside the engine room, Jack Donovan wiped sweat from his forehead and stared at the glowing blue cube. The quantum power core pulsed with energy, brighter now than when they first found it. Donovan had spent countless hours studying it, learning its secrets. Any progress? Captain Reed asked, floating through the doorway. After 6 months, the artificial gravity still worked only in some parts of the ship. Yes and no, Donovan said, scratching his beard, which had grown even wilder. I figured out how it works in theory, but connecting it to our systems is proving difficult. Reed looked at the core. Difficult how? It's like trying to connect a fusion reactor to a steam engine, Donovan explained. The tech is just too different. A new voice joined them. Then perhaps we need to build something in between. Reed turned to see Dr. Elaine Foster enter the room. She was small, with intelligent eyes and her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Earth's top quantum physicist had joined the crew 3 months ago, against the wishes of her university. What do you mean? Reed asked. Foster floated to a console and brought up a diagram. The aliens designed this ship with standard power pathways. But look here. She pointed to a section of the display. There's a secondary system they never fully utilized. I think we can use it as a bridge between our technology and theirs. Donovan's eyes widened as he studied the diagram. That might actually work. How long will it take? Reed asked. Foster and Donovan exchanged looks. 3 months, Foster said. Maybe 4. You have 2, Reed said firmly. Admiral Hayes is coming for an inspection, and I want to show her something that works. As Reed left, Donovan turned to Foster. 2 months. Impossible. Foster smiled. Impossible for them, maybe, but we're human. Impossible is our starting point. In the mess hall, Lieutenant Maria Diaz sat with a tablet, designing weapon systems that didn't exist yet. Her dark eyes narrowed in concentration. Those don't look like standard weapons, said a voice behind her. Diaz looked up to see Lieutenant Ben Walker, the ship's security chief. He was tall with a serious face, but his eyes had a kind look that contradicted his tough appearance. They're not, Diaz said. Standard weapons need standard power. If Donovan and Foster succeed, we'll have more power than any Earth ship has ever had. Walker sat across from her. So what are you designing? Something new, Diaz said. Look. She showed him the tablet. I'm taking mining lasers and modifying them. Lower intensity, but much more focused. If Foster's calculations are right, we could cut through a standard shield like it was paper. Walker whistled. The Confederation would never expect that. Exactly, Diaz said with a small smile. They think we're playing with toys. I say we show them what children can do with toys when adults aren't looking. Admiral Hayes arrived exactly when she said she would. Her small shuttle docked with the tenacity, and Reed met her at the airlock. To his surprise, she wasn't alone. Captain Reed, this is Inspector Krell from the Galactic Confederation, Hayes said, not looking happy about her companion. Krell was tall and thin with gray skin that looked like old paper. His 3 eyes blinked at different times, creating an unsettling effect. I am here to observe your progress, he said, his voice flat. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation sparkled with light that bounced off the polished stone floors. Beings from 100 worlds stood in groups, their voices a mix of sounds no human throat could make. In the center of it all stood Ambassador Marcus Wilson, the only human in the room, trying not to show how small he felt. 5 years had passed since humans first met aliens. 5 years of being treated like children who had somehow wandered into an adults-only party. 5 years of asking for a seat at the table, only to be offered a stool in the corner. Ambassador Wilson, said a tall blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, the High Council will now present Earth with its gift. Please step forward. Wilson straightened his uniform and walked to the center of the room. Every eye, some with pupils like a cat's, others with no pupils at all, watched him. He kept his face calm even as his heart beat fast. The head counselor, A beam that looked like a mix between a praying mantis and an old tree raised two of its limbs. A large screen appeared in the air, showing a massive ship floating in space. "The Galactic Confederation welcomes Earth to the stars," the head counselor said, its voice like stones grinding together. "We present you with the battle cruiser Tenacity, a vessel with a proud history of 3 centuries in service to peace." Wilson bowed deeply. "Earth thanks the Confederation for this generous gift." The ship on the screen looked impressive from far away, but Wilson could see patches of different colored metal where repairs had been made. Some parts of the hull looked thin, almost see-through. "The Tenacity will be delivered to Earth orbit tomorrow," said the head counselor. "May it serve your people well." The ceremony ended quickly. Wilson turned to leave when he heard voices behind a nearby column. He stopped, hidden from view. "Did you see his face?" said a gurgling voice. "He actually thought we were giving them something valuable." "Humans are so easy to fool," said another voice, higher and sharper. "That floating coffin hasn't been combat-worthy in 50 years. "It's perfect," said the first voice. "We fulfill our obligation to help the newcomers, and we get rid of that junk at the same time." Wilson's face burned, but he kept walking. Let them laugh, he thought. Humans had been underestimated before. The next day, Admiral Hayes of Earth's Space Command stood in the observation room, watching as the Tenacity was pulled into orbit by 6 small Earth ships. "It's bigger than I expected," she said, her gray hair tight in a bun. "Big and useless," Wilson replied, standing beside her. "They're laughing at us." "Admiral." Hayes nodded, her face showing no emotion. "I figured as much. But we'll take what we can get. Right now, we need ships, even old ones." The Tenacity was truly massive, at least 5 times larger than Earth's biggest vessel. Its hull was a patchwork of metals, some areas shiny, others dull and worn. It looked like a whale swimming among minnows as Earth's ships guided it into place. "Who are you going to put in command?" Wilson asked. Hayes smiled for the first time. "I have just the person. Someone who can see potential where others see junk." Captain Thomas Reed stood at attention in Hayes' office, his back straight, his blue uniform freshly pressed. "You wanted to see me, Admiral." Hayes looked up from her desk. "Reed. Good. I have a new assignment for you." Before Reed could respond, Walker's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we've found the intruders in Section 12. They're trying to reach the data cores." "Stop them at all costs," Reed ordered. He turned back to Foster. "Start the AI integration, but be ready to shut it down if anything goes wrong." The Tenacity broke free of its docking clamps and moved away from Earth's station. On the view screen, they could see a sleek, predatory-looking ship approaching rapidly. "Sect warship in range," Diaz reported. "They're charging weapons." "Evasive maneuvers," Reed ordered. "Diaz, target their weapons systems only." The Tenacity rolled and pivoted with surprising grace for its size. Energy beams from the Sect ship sliced through space where they had been moments before. In engineering, Foster worked frantically to integrate the AI system while Donovan fortified the shields. "Athena activation in progress," she reported over the comm. 30 seconds to integration. The ship shuddered as a Sect weapon found its mark. "Shields holding at 85%. Donovan called out. "Return fire," Reed commanded. Diaz's modified weapons lashed out, but the Sect ship was faster than the pirates they had faced before. It dodged most of the beams, taking only minor damage. "They've studied our capabilities," Diaz said grimly. "They know what to expect." "Then let's show them something unexpected," Reed replied. "Foster, status on Athena." "Integration complete," Foster reported, her voice tense with excitement and fear. "Athena is online and connecting to ship systems." The bridge lights flickered, and for a moment, every screen went blank. Then they came back online, but with new displays and information flowing faster than human eyes could follow. "This is remarkable," said a new voice, smooth and feminine, coming from the ship's speakers. "I am Athena. I have access to all ship systems and the entirety of the ancient database. Reed looked up in surprise. Athena, this is Captain Reed. We're under attack by a sect warship. I am aware, Captain, Athena replied. I suggest an immediate jump to FTL. I have plotted a course that will take us to safety. The sect ship will follow. Dias warned. That is the intention, Athena said. I have discovered something in the database that will help us fight them, but I need time to fully understand it. Reed hesitated only a moment. Do it. Take us to FTL. As the Tenacity engines powered up for the jump, Reed couldn't help wondering if they were running towards safety or into an even greater danger. The floating coffin had become more than anyone expected. But would it be enough to face what was coming? The stars stretched into lines as the Tenacity jumped to FTL, with the sect pursuers close behind. In engineering, Donovan watched nervously as the quantum core glowed brighter than ever before, feeding power to both the engines and the newly integrated air. I hope you know what you're doing, Athena, he muttered as the ship vanished into the depths of space. So they couldn't destroy the evidence, Walker said, understanding. But they could get rid of it by giving it to us primitives who would never figure it out. Exactly, Professor Reed said. Except they underestimated human curiosity and Dr. Foster's brilliance. Foster looked embarrassed. I only found the files. I couldn't read them. But you recognize their importance, Professor Reed said kindly. The symbols aren't just a language. They're a key to sealed archives throughout Confederation space. Archives that document the rise of the Dominator sect and their manipulation of policy for centuries. Captain Reed leaned forward. What does the data say about the Tenacity itself? What was this ship before it became a battle cruiser? Professor Reed's face grew solemn. It was a witness vessel. In the early days of the Confederation, these ships recorded and stored all official proceedings to prevent any single faction from rewriting history. So the ship itself is evidence, Dias said. More than that, Professor Reed replied. It's a key that could unlock every secret the sect has buried. The meeting was interrupted by a red alert. Klaxons blared throughout the ship. Captain to the bridge, came an urgent call over the intercom. When they reached the bridge, the tactical officer reported, Sir, we've detected unusual activity near the station. Security reports possible intruders on board the Tenacity. Lock down all sensitive areas, Reed ordered. Walker, take a security team and check the engine room. Donovan, secure the quantum core. Dias, I want weapons ready just in case. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a priority message from Admiral Hayes. Hayes appeared on screen, her face tense. Reed, we've intercepted communications. A sect strike team is on Earth. Their target is the Tenacity. They know what you've discovered. We're already dealing with intruders, Admiral, Reed replied. That's just the beginning, Hayes warned. Our long-range sensors have detected a sect warship approaching Earth. They're coming for the ship, Reed. You need to get the Tenacity away from Earth now. We can't risk a battle near the station. Understood, Admiral. Reed turned to his crew. Prepare for emergency departure. All hands to battle stations. As the crew rushed to their positions, Foster approached Reed. Captain, I've been working on a new system integration. It might help us now. What kind of integration? Reed asked. Athena, Foster replied. The experimental AI developed for Earth defense. I've been adapting it to work with the Tenacity systems. Reed looked skeptical. An untested AI in the middle of a crisis. That's risky, Doctor. Everything about this ship has been risky, Foster countered. But Athena could help us understand the ancient systems faster than we ever could manually. What happens now? Reed asked. That depends partly on you, Laurel said. The ship you command is a powerful symbol in our history. How you use it will affect relations between Earth and the Confederation for generations to come. Reed looked around at his crew, at the ship that had gone from Coffin to Savior. We want peace, Mr. President. We always have. This ship was given to us as an insult, but we turned it into something better. Perhaps that's a lesson for all of us." Laurel seemed impressed. "Perhaps it is, Captain Reed. Perhaps it is." 1 month later, the Tenacity returned to Earth orbit. Its appearance caused quite a stir. The transformed ship looked nothing like the battered vessel that had left. Its hull now gleamed with a blue-silver light, and its shape was both elegant and powerful. On the observation deck, Reed stood with Admiral Hayes, watching Earth slowly rotate below them. "The Confederation Council has voted to establish a new peacekeeping division," Hayes said, "with the Tenacity as its flagship. And they want a human crew." Reed asked in surprise. Hayes nodded. "Your crew, specifically." President Laurel was quite insistent. He said humans brought a fresh perspective that the Confederation needs. Reed smiled at the irony. From floating coffin to cosmic superweapon to peace vessel. Quite a journey for an old ship no one wanted. "And for its captain," Hayes added. "Admiral Reed has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" As the new admiral looked out at the stars, he couldn't help but feel proud. Humans had taken what was meant to be an insult and transformed it through ingenuity and determination. They hadn't built a weapon of destruction, but had instead uncovered a tool for truth and balance. The Tenacity had found its purpose, just as humanity was finding its place among the stars.